The Albanese government has finally released its third iteration of the proposed voice to Parliament. It is seeking to enshrine a racial divide into our constitution, and trust me, this can never be undone if it's successful. The voice will be a new bureaucracy, only accessible by those with special racial credentials, which of course you're called a racist if you dare to question them.
Well, you're talking in hypotheticals
No, we're not
and riddles.
talking in hypotheticals.
I know what you're seeking to achieve. Quite frankly, it's borderline racist, some of your questions that you're putting here.
Is it really?
Yeah,
to ask the question about how someone identifies and how it is that the legislation, the framework does that in a practical, that's racist, is it?
Borderline, yes.
Borderline racist, is it really?
The path that you're going down.
Is it really? Yeah.
That's right. In this new world, to even question why someone with a fraction of Aboriginal DNA can set aside the majority of their heritage to claim Aboriginality means you're a borderline racist. Now, under the voice, you can imagine the rush to track down a distant ancestor to avail of the new perks and profits that will only be available to a select few. Pauline Hanson this week claimed a list of demands found at a Canberra cafe explains what the voice really does. These include job quotas for Aboriginal people, no entry requirements to universities, early access to the age pension, priority for public housing, free or subsidised entry to sport and music events, reduced income tax, mining and water royalties, a new voice department to be the same size as Prime Minister and Cabinet, and the right to decide all liquor licensing applications. Nothing to worry about there, is there? That set of proposals isn't racist at all. Now, Hanson said the note was left behind by a group who she believed to be were employed by the National Indigenous Australians Agency. The NIAA denies the plan has anything to do with them. But whether it does or not isn't really important right now. But the plans identified in the note are all possibilities if the voice is successful. Our own Prime Minister has said it would be a very brave Parliament that chose to ignore the suggestions of Australia's own Aboriginal House of Lords. Well, he didn't say them, they were Aboriginal House of Lords. I did. Warren Mundine, an Aboriginal leader and supporter of the No campaign, says that a successful voice referendum would result in more than a decade of legal challenges.
It's sort of like being asked, would you like a bit of cake with your coffee? You know, we like to know what's in the cake before we say yes to it. We're going to be in litigation, you know, for the next 10, 15 years over this voice when it gets up. And guess what? It's not going to change one iota anything on the ground of Aboriginal people.
Now, we do have another example of a voice operating. New Zealand has had a Maori voice to Parliament for some time now. It's the Waitangi Tribunal. It was established in 1975 and it was designed to provide non-binding advice to government. But it now acts as a virtual veto voice to the New Zealand government. Many warn the same thing could happen here, particularly as we don't even know what the legislation linked to the constitutional change will contain. But think about this. The Albanese proposal includes these words. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws with respect to matters relating to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice, including its compositions, functions, powers and procedures. That means there's no limit to what the assortment of leftists like Greens, Labor and other lamentables could empower the voice to do. There is no law, regulation or policy, nor any act or decision of the federal government or Parliament that cannot potentially they could exert enormous power over. In fact, that power of advice could include binding or vetoing anything a government does. Of course, we're told that won't happen, and that's what New Zealanders were told too. So it's not as if our politicians don't make a habit of not telling us the truth or the whole truth, or making promises they have no intention or capacity to fulfil. The voice is a terrible move for Australia. It is racist and dangerous to our democracy, and it will not improve the lot of Aboriginal people, but it will create an elite among them, the lords of the great southern land, to rule over the rest of us.